back and say, hey, we screwed up, we didn't understand this, or give another chance to kind of again. And that, if you're not getting that level of fairness from me or any other reporter, really, that's an issue to talk to my boss about and bring that up. And I would, take the gloves off in that discussion. Now, I would rather you didn't have the discussion in the comment section of my thing, that happens, that's fine. That will piss me off to no end. Yeah. It just happens, but that's okay. And I have thick skin, and I expect that. And if you don't do that, somebody will do it on your behalf, frankly. That's one thing I realize is that's where your community strengths show up, is if I have, misread a game or really blown it on review, people who love that game are going to come in there and weigh in on it and say, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. And I think that actually has a big effect on the credibility of the story. And those reviews last forever. And so does that comment usually, unless it's libelous. So, the tenor of that thing online will change based on those comments. And I'd love to hear how many of you guys actually go in as, Joe Blow 63 and modify the tenor of those things. I'm sure it happens, but.
I think we assume that you could tell, so we don't. Okay. Maybe you can't, but we just always assume no. If we're from the company, we're from the company.
And in fact, some of the worst disasters, publicity disasters, come from when public relations agencies take interns and attempt to adjust the scores. Right.
I remember.
Yeah. One thing, I was talking to one of the guys in the audience a while ago who used to work at Microsoft, and he was mentioning, I think it was a review process where I think they called somebody who had not really played the game very much because of the metrics you guys can pull off of the Xbox and stuff like that. You can, somebody might have just whipped out a review after spending 15 minutes on a game and filing a story. And I understand you guys will call them and say, hey, we deserve a fair shake here. And that's interesting.
That's new. Well, I mean, that could happen a year, 5 years ago.
Technically,
Yeah.
They did it with MMOs
You can
as
measure
well.
the reviews.
I had a reviewer who gave a negative review on the game, and he only made it to level 13, and I called him on it. And I said, you didn't even get you didn't even get to the abyss. That's where the action starts. Like, how can you say you basically reviewed a game just like if you watched a trailer for a movie and said this is what the movie's about, and this is what I give it. So, and he took it and he re-reviewed it.
But I think you brought up a good point, which was the role that customer reviews is playing now in the purchase process has gone up exponentially. I mean, whether it's Amazon or Xbox Live, people are using that as a quality filter. So hopefully they're not manipulatable.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, if the numbers are large enough, I've been asked by publishers, I know what your Metacritic is, what's your user rate?
Yes.
Right, which Metacritic also shows.
Yeah.
And they're actually often interested if the users are higher than the reviewers, if the users are lower than the reviewers. Just that relative.
Yeah, and we are seeing a correlation.
But reviews do matter.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a quality source. It's a trusted source.
I'm curious to know, do you guys have a read on how much buyers are influenced by the discussion below a review? If you go to like Joystick or something like that, I mean, how much of the decision do you think is based on the initial story element or on the discussion
On
below?
the story. It's all on the story. I've been in GameStop meetings. I've been in Amazon. They don't care about, and sometimes they don't even care about the story. It's the headline and the Metacritic score, and that drives me nuts.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's very hard.
Which is helpful, because when I was working on Fable, I'd say 40% of the blog postings were making fun of Peter Molyneux's mission. And then the quality of the game must be bad because of that. But thankfully it wasn't. It was about the game itself, and people judged the game based on the game's merits. Ultimately.
As sort of artists, I think games is kind of an artistic endeavor too. Do you think that games should change and become more, satisfying with critics? You're kind of like red wines are all kind of big and bold and meaty that satisfy Robert Parker. I mean, do you think that that'll happen in games?
I think the hard part is I think what really people are judging is the promise. I see this game, it's making a promise to me as a consumer to take me to the fantasy where I can play quarterback in Madden, or to, whatever that promise is, and did it deliver on that promise? And as a consumer of that medium, did I get what I expected and more? Was I impressed? Have I seen more? These are the kinds of feelings I think people have, and we try and qualify that into number scores or different systems. But like you said, it is kind of an art, and because it's a business, and because we can only take so many risks that, you know, as the money costs more and more for different games, the types of games that get made have smaller and smaller differences from them, but every once in a while there's a game here or there that jumps and breaks a genre, and those are the hardest ones to see. You know, maybe it's the third game in that genre that really starts getting the reviews where everyone kind of expects. But I think there is this fungible, this strangeness in our media where it's hard to say, yeah, like a red wine, that's a great red wine versus a bad red wine. There's a lot of difference in our industry.
I do think it's delivering on the promise of the expectation. I can give you an example. The Zelda series, Zelda the Wind Waker, if you remember, had a dramatically different art style. It was not a photorealistic rendering art style. Miyamoto-san said he was bored with the rendered art style. He wanted to do something different. As an artist, it's a creative endeavor, and he wanted to do something different. We got so much flack from the fanboys initially, just endless, you know, constant. That's not the game I signed up for.
Diablo 3 is getting that now.
It's Miyamoto's game, you know. But what we did see was that actually it impacted the initial sales curve. It had a slower uptake than previous generations of the Zelda game. But in the end, it had a longer tail, and that game did very well. It was another great Zelda, you know, game in the series. But we did fail to meet expectations for some consumers. In the end, did it broaden the audience? Maybe it did. Maybe that art style exposed it to a different group. I don't know.
Fair enough. I think it's about time we open the floor to audience questions. Anybody got anything? Sure.
Scott, at the very beginning, you made a comment that, you know, with the social media, that the game